on our brand new week. So the first market that we're going to be looking at that's going to open here in just a few minutes is the Forex market. So the U.S. Forex session begins at 8 a.m. U.S. Eastern, 7 a.m. my time. And we're just going to have a quick look at the charts, see what is moving, and then we'll make a decision as to what we might be able to trade on a breakout from there. All right, so let's jump into it. We're going to keep this under 5 minutes, so we're going to go quick. First thing we're going to look at here is news. Make sure that we don't have any high impact news coming up. We want to know what news is occurring so that we can make our kind of plan our trading day around it. Here this morning, no high impact news at all on the board, so that means it should be a fairly, doing air quotes here, regular trading day with at least with nothing to keep us out of the market due to any news events. So with that said, we can then jump over here to this chart and have a look at what's actually moving. So we can see that the pound really had a sell-off earlier today. Pound's certainly a very weak currency. It sold off at the beginning, kind of through London. It's been flat here for the last few hours. In fact, all of our currencies have been fairly flat for the last few hours. So pound, definitely a weak currency. US is one of the stronger currencies in relation to one another, but the fact that we've just been flat here for a while tells us that we've, could see some interesting stuff when the US session begins. Either A, continuation of what we've got here, or B, reversals. That's always what it is, right? There's A or B. One or the other is going to happen. No one can really prognosticate that accurately as to what's going to go on. So what do we do with this information? Well, I'd like to look a little bit more internally here, because if we look at, let's say, the pound USD, let me just bring this one over. It moved 214 pips already for the day. Its average is about 100. So, likelihood of that continuing on, tough to, it could, absolutely could. It could move another 100 pips. But what's the real likelihood of it? That remains to be known until the actual U.S. session begins and we see, if we're buying or selling the pound. I'd prefer to look kind of in the middle here, and we can see that the CAD and the euro kind of trading with one another, but one is stronger, one is weaker. And we've actually got some divergence coming into the new session. The euro CAD has only moved 45 pips on the day, and its average is typically around 85 to almost 100. So I see more opportunity here on this euro versus the CAD than I do out here on something that's already moved a significant amount. I'd rather see something that's moved a fraction of what its typical range would be, so that we can then play a breakout and say, hey, let's see if we get additional movement that takes us back to what that average range would be. It's basically just a mean reversion trade is all it really comes down to. So with that said, what would we be looking at here? So if we look at this, we can see the euro has been bought. It's been a stronger currency than the CAD. So with that said, we'd want to continue buying euros and selling the CAD. The volume detail here supports it as well. If we look at this, we can see that we've got a volume detail that supports continued buying of the euro, selling of the CAD. So we'd like to see a breakout here to the north side, to the long side. So how we'll play that is when the U.S. session opens, I can't speak this morning. When the U.S. session opens, we'll have a box that'll paint here, and then we'll just look to see if we get a burst of momentum that takes us to the outside of that box, the top side of that box. And if it does, we'll go long on the euro and play a long position on the euro CAD. So that's what I'm looking at for a breakout this morning. All right, so that is it for Forex. I'll be back in just a little bit and we'll talk about what's happening in futures, trading it a little different way, but give you some trade ideas there as well. So anyway, that is it for me for now. Have a